My name is Lazar Bodroža. I am born and raised in Belgrade, and I will talk about a journey called making of sci-fi film with porn actress in Serbia. So, because if I said I will talk about making indie movie in Serbia, it will be totally boring and everybody will leave. But if I say these few taglines, I think that I will tickle your imagination. So I'm coming from the country, as you all know here, that don't have much in common with sci-fi genre. This is one of the rare sci-fi movies from, I think, late 70s or early 80s from Croatia called Visitors from Galaxy. This is LP record of soundtrack that was released few years ago. So as I said, we don't have much to do with sci-fi. This is also one of the sci-fi films from Yugoslavia called Svemirci su krivi za sve. That is part of serious Ciao Inspectore. So that's much about sci-fi in some exact form. There is some movies that have sci-fi elements, but not too much. So yes, from the very beginning, when me and my friend Dimitri Vojnov, who is also a screenwriter of the film, we were in the middle of our bromance. So we were thinking what to do together, to keep our flame, alive, because also, male relationships are important to maintain. So we were always very impressed with that totalitarian ideologies, and because Yugoslavia as a country never were truly totalitarian country, so we are always impressed with that totalitarianism that's coming from the East. And on the one side we wanted to do something with that, but on the other side we of course were impressed with old sci-fi movies on one hand, and with ideology. So we wanted to make something like Blade Runner from SSSR or something like that. That was one of the initial ideas. It was on the very beginning. We still didn't know what exactly to do. And Dimitri came to me with one story that was written the year I was born, the month I was born. Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe it was written a year before I was born, but I always say that on these occasions because it sounds good. It's a story from Zoran Nešković. He's a guy who basically, I think, published 2 stories in his life, and Dimitri found his story in some sci-fi magazine from 80s or something like that. And that story had that premise about astronaut and android, and android is there for astronaut's pleasure on the very beginning of that story, but then they get involved in a relationship, and astronaut wants something more from that android. So it's one of those metaphorical love stories. And first, when he pitched me that idea about that short story, I was like sci-fi in Serbia, there is no way, blah, blah. But then I got hooked to that idea. And also in that moment, in that early 2010, 2011, there was a lot of those, there still are, but that was one wave of those independent sci-fi movies like This Another Earth that were at Sundance 2011, also Monsters, that was on South by Southwest 2010. And on the other side, that was something that was very inspiring. Okay, people around the world are making, some films for close to nothing, and they're quite successful. So it's always good when you're part of some kind of global movement on any level, or at least that you're imagining that you're part of that movement. Also, I always wanted to make the movie that have that kind of, that is really an art movie in that very 70s, point of art movies that are very visual, like Khodorovsky and other guys that made those ridiculously beautiful and visual films, very religious, very metaphorical in that sense. And also, this is a very interesting film. This film is called Beyond the Black Rainbow from Panos Cosmatos. Panos Cosmatos is a son of Cosmatos, the famous director that did films Cobra 2 and Rambo 2. And he made this bizarre movie about some New Age institute that, like got wrong somewhere in 80s and start to, like torture people and stuff like that. But this film, it's very visually impressive film, and this film helped me to convince people that this is possible to do, to convince my colleagues, friends who helped me on this journey. Because when you tell to people like, I want to make film like Blade Runner or Odyssey, everybody laugh to you because, like, first, you're not a genius. Second, like we are not in those times and we don't have that money. But when you show them something that is made in this era, then you can really convince them that like your idea is possible. More of some beautiful pictures that I put in these Google Photos. And then we were thinking like, who will be good for the role of android? And then we got to Stoya, because android is there for the astronaut's pleasure in the very beginning of the film, and then things got complicated. And Stoya is also there for the pleasure of all of us because she's like a porn actress. But at the same time, she's a columnist of New York Times, activist, and very interesting person and a good friend nowadays. So we first thing, like we were like, how we should like let's contact her. Like we didn't even have a script. We had only synopsis and maybe a few pictures like this that I showed you. And then we realized that we have a mutual friend with her. This guy Nikola Tamidžić that did this amazing book Fucking New York. I don't know the guy, I never met him still, but he connected us with Stoya because he did some pictures with her. And it was one of those, like Serbian connections, like we are connecting in worldwide. And then our also good friend who was at this stage a few minutes ago, Jovan Todorović. He was then living in New York, starting living there, and I asked him like, can you please, meet with Stoya? I will connect you and do some rehearsal shooting with her to see how she functions. He did some short film. I never saw the film. I don't know what is inside the film. I only got this one image from the film, I don't know what they did, but he said to me like, no, she's really, like interesting person, and she really listens when you give her indications and stuff like that. So she has some potential for, let's say, real acting. Because like in nowadays pornography, it's like issue because there is not too much acting nowadays, because I think that they are embarrassed when they need to act. So it's always like some kind of, like stupid content before, a real deal, but not like back in 70s or 80s, when Widow come to the detective agency, you had the proper scene before the action. But nowadays, you cannot find out too much about somebody's acting abilities in these dramatic scenes in porn. So then we were like thinking like, first we were like impressed with that idea, like on conceptual level, we were like, wow, it will be amazing to have her, and then, like to totally spin this in some bizarre way. And then we got some initial money from our film center, and then we needed like 1 year to really get that money. And of course, as you can imagine, like our media were totally overwhelmed with the idea of making this film. This is some small details. I totally forget about that. There were a lot of newspaper articles back in the days, and I found few of them recently and took the photos. Now it's funny, but back in the days it was, then we said like, okay, let's see if if this girl really knows how to act, So we brought her to Belgrade and make some kind of, rehearsal shooting with her. and shot this short video. And also we realized that approach that we initially imagined to have in the film will not function. We wanted to have this very 80s looking, you know, like a film that is, you know, like very, you know, like clear and, you know, for set to be, you know, like films like Odyssey or Moon. And then we realized that with our budget and our intelligence, probably it will look quite crappy. So we realized that this approach is not, visually, this approach is not, you know, like what we needed, and that we need to make something that is more dirty, darker, mystified, and, you know, like less clear, less, you know, like less light, you know, low light conditions. Okay, then we were working on the script, you know, storyboards, ideas, you know, usual stuff. That creative process that is usually quite short for this, for an indie film. And then we have like a rehearsal with her. We realize that she's the right person. Then we find the actor, Sebastian Cavazza. We had rehearsals with them, and then we pair them 9 days before the shooting and do the rehearsals together with them, with two of them. This is like, we also did some pre-visualization that are very funny, but we tested some things in set design, in you know, like mood and stuff like that. So this is interesting. I didn't saw this for years. Also, this is something quite similar to the film. So also we have some prep time. And it was everything that we did in prep on the end really helped us when we really start making our spaceship in this so-called studio. So this is how all started. Aljoša Spajić was set designer, and before he put one of these wooden, you know, like things on the ground, I didn't know that film really will happen. And when he started measuring this floor, I realized that, you know, like film is really going to happen, and it will be success this way or another, because we are making, as I said, sci-fi film with porn actors in Serbia. So like, what else? You know, it's like dream come true. With friends, you know. So this is how things were, you know, like progressing. This is my director assistant laying on the bed that will become very important in the film. Then paint come inside. So we realized that we need to make Kosta Glušica, who is director of photography. It is also his first film. We realized that we need to make, you know, real set so we can control conditions, lighting, and everything. And because we have very small number of days of shooting, we have only 20 days of shooting altogether. So we realized that we need to do the whole film in that old Hollywood way, you know, like with pre-lights. All of the lights was on the palette, and you can control everything very fast. So that was one of the, you know, that was investment, but it was a very good decision to do it in a real studio, in a real studio conditions, let's say. This was like costume, you know, experiments. This was rehearsals. As I said, we had like 8 days of rehearsal, because like something with set design, we were waiting for set design. We should have only 3 days, but we had 8 days on the end. So basically, in that moment, we have like all days of the shooting in a row, maybe only one pause day. Here are our actors, you know, like rehearsing. They're like heavy under the influence of rakia or maybe some other stuffs. I don't know, you know, like I wasn't with them in every moment. And then shooting started, and I was only tense for the first day of the shooting, because I didn't know, will this really look like a real film? Because from the very beginning we were like what is going to be the feeling of the, like first shot or first few shots? Will this function, like when you shoot both characters talking about restarting of her system and stuff like that. So, because like here, before this, there were one service film shot in Serbia called Lockout, and there were like tons of legends about that film, and that was the only thing I knew about anybody shooting sci-fi like this in Serbia. So, for example, for Lockout, they said to me that like spacesuit costed like $10,000, and now the legend is that that spacesuit costed like $30,000. So those legends are always becoming, like bigger and bigger. This is our executive producer laying as a stand-in and shot. This will going to be something. Yes, this was like the first trailer that my producer Alexander Protic made out of the dailies from the first 3 days of shooting. So we were like very impressed with the look of the film. Me personally, because I'm like the visual guy, and it was really great that I had like Costa with me because he really make it look so amazing. So I didn't think at all about the visual side of the film. I was only with actors and their struggles for those 3 weeks. Then we shot studio, but we also paired few locations. This was Yacht Technica, one location that we used that is facility for repairing of airplanes near to the airport, and it's very impressive location. So that we also used to, like make that universe of the spaceship a little bit wider, that space. And it was a little bit risky to pair studio and the real location, but in the end we did a good job. This is Costa doing his job, and this is like set design guy who is like torturing main actor in his chair. This is also, Slovenian guy on the wires. If you ever wanted to know how that looks, this is the moment. This didn't come to in the film on the end. I think that we had it in Blu-ray in extras or something, because of like Slovenians on wire, like who will watch that? So this is those jokes from the shooting. This is like some behind the scenes when you can see like that hectic atmosphere of like shooting, and it was really like beautiful experience in the sense that like we really did whatever we wanted without any like pressure from the producer or anybody else. But on the very beginning we made a big compromise to shoot film for a very low amount of money, so we didn't want to like save money on the set design. Like we saved as much as we could, but we saved on the number of days of shooting. We had the best possible camera lenses and stuff, but we have very little time to really shoot the film. This is the main actor after fight with the director, and like life is one beautiful thing. Naked people, that's always something and this is me on the end of the shooting. So that was it. And then we had like some kind of cut of the film after like 2 months after shooting. We shot film somewhere in November and December 2015. And then in 2016 we went to Berlin to talk with sales agents, with the foreign people, because like we didn't know much about film business. And my producer Alexander Protic and me, we had like 15 meetings on market in Berlin, and everybody were quite, like always on those meetings, everybody is quite thrilled about, what you did, but nobody is too interested to like invest anything. Then we were like, okay, let's do that thing that people always do, or at least try to do, to make like Indiegogo campaign. And we made the Indiegogo campaign, which was a little bit silly because the film looked quite high budget. So I don't know who will believe us that we need some money. You need for film to look a little bit crappy or to be about some topic that is, very I don't know, appealing to people or, important socially, not about, androids naked androids in the space. But still, we made that campaign, and we made this where like when somebody donates something, he get this like diploma and stuff. And on the end, like we didn't succeed because we had the fixed goal of 50K, and we were like get 15 or 20K. But on the end, we get some investors out of that Indiegogo campaign. So campaign was officially unsuccessful, but on the end we get some money out of that without making any kind of merchandise and those stuff that on the end take quite a lot of time. And we started with VFX. As I said, we worked with Primer from Belgrade and Fright Pictures from Belgrade, my dear friends, and it was one long journey. This is some sketches that I made, but on the end we had like, it's interesting trivia, we had like 150 VFX shots in the film that altogether didn't have much more than 700 shots, so it was quite heavy VFX film. We have things like this, like graphics, some like easy stuff that are not so complicated, but also we have some little bit more complicated stuff or those fluid elements, but also spaceship and all that goes together with that. So that was a struggle, like always, but on the end, I'm quite satisfied with the result, because my friend said, like, the good thing is that everything looks odd in this movie, like nothing is like normal, everything is a little bit odd and strange, so that also, like a lot of these retro graphics with that retro emotions, these abstract elements that, I think that this is like macro shots of android's body, like of his, brain or something like that. And that lasted for I think that we did VFX altogether like 1.5 years, and even if we have more money, I think that with our intelligence, we will not do it faster than 1 year, like on the end. And I was also, like trying to find the best possible way, and also, like giving, it was quite, let's say, how to say, it was quite like a workshop activity, yes. Also, we have this graphic over the picture. This is one of the animatics of like when we getting inside of the ship. That's interesting to see some of the early animatics where guys from the Premiere really, like faked this camera movement quite good. So this is one of the like early images from the film. Then we came to the reshoot, because we, on the purpose, left aside 2 very important scenes because we realized that we will not do it in the first run. It was the beginning of the film when our main character is talking with the social engineer, and it also was the spacewalk scene, which is quite complicated scene, and we honestly didn't know how to do that scene. So first we want to shoot that beginning of the film in this strange space called Ksevet in Vitanje in Slovenia. It's like basically space cultural center that made by Dragan Živadinov. He's a famous Slovenian theater director and founder of Neue Slowenische Kunst, Laibach, and other movements. From that generation. This is that amazing space, and we were like visiting space with Dragan and hanging around, and it was a really good idea, but on the end we realized that we don't have money to shoot in Slovenia, it will be too complicated, and we shot that scene in National Library, and I really like that opening scene because it have that Slavic sci-fi moment, like people surrounded with wooden, like chairs talking about, exporting ideology to Alpha Centauri. So I think that on the end it worked the trick. It was a little bit risky because it's well-known space here in Belgrade and quite used. But on the end, I think that we managed to trick the perception of the viewer. And also we did the spacewalk that I'm very satisfied. On the end, we make it much more simple than in script, of course. But we basically were shooting in this space called Yat Technica near airport. And we were shooting stuntmen upside down. So this tunnel really exists and everything around is black. And then we made these 3D extensions around him and flip the screen. So it really, on the end, it tricks your perception because you don't know what is 3D, what is not 3D, because I think that nobody expects that this tunnel really exists. So it's one of like we had only I think 1 day for this spacewalk. Like we had like 2 or 3 spacewalk scenes. So it was quite a task, but we find a way. It's quite a cheap way to do it. And also this stuntman wasn't some real stuntman. It was like guy, I suppose, from some prison that they bring and put him up, and then he was losing, oxygen and going down. So it was fun as always. And then we went to China because we realized that we need to go to China this way or another to do color grading of the film with our friend Nikola Stefanovic, who is also one of the founding fathers of this conference or something like that. And we were in Shanghai for 5 days working on color grading. So you see here some random Serbian guys, trying to operate with, sophisticated hardware. This is also some interesting. We can put volume up. I don't know why, but this is the atmosphere. This is basically the metaphor of the whole film. This is me. Nobody's listening to me. This is like my other authors leaving the project and coming to the project, and this is like film itself. So, and this is like a crowd that don't give a fuck. And so this is when I saw this in that some mall, I was like really like I really felt this girl, and I felt the connection. Like, okay, this is my life, like this is one of the authors leaving the project, and stuff like that. So this, I was like, I feel that connection, And okay, we put somehow a film together, and for me, this was our premiere at Fest in Belgrade. It was really wonderful in that big socialistic hall with 3,000 people. It was really beautiful, and on the end, I know that I had the most time. I spent the most time that last 6 months when we already locked, like I think that we had already locked the picture to really try to pack that movie to look like and feel like a real movie, like you can like or dislike the movie, that's not a problem, but on the end, not to have doubt, is this a real movie or some kind of music video that lasts for an hour and a half? So we had got a few awards on Fest for Best Picture, also for Best Actress. And it was interesting because, like when Stoya came to Fest, people really saw her talent and really, press was really friendly, unlike on the very beginning of the project, as you saw. But it's not just a Serbian thing. I think that that prejudice about porn actress and sci-fi films, and like they're everywhere. Also, Sebastian Cavaca for the Best Actor, and. Although it was like the local festival, it really helped us on our international festival journey because people wanted to see like what is that film that got all of the awards in Belgrade, and the milestone of the film was when our co-producer Jonathan English he made a deal with Lionsgate to distribute the film in America, and that's one thing that really rings the bell for everybody. I know when I'm speaking about myself or about the movie, people are like, like, you know, like producers or investors are like, oh, you're an artist, it's really interesting and everything. But when I said that we sold the movie to Lionsgate, then everybody take the phone and check the IMDb and stuff. So that at least it worked, you know, like for that occasion is very, very okay. And we have some, you know, like good, also some bad reactions. But this is John Scalzi, the famous science fiction author that wrote blurb for us. Yes, Lionsgate came into the picture. We were on a bunch of the festivals. This is one in Brazil that was really amazing. Here you can see a lot of very cool American independent filmmakers. Also, we were in Tarkovsky Fest in Russia. That was really interesting experience because in Russia, when people see that kind of you know, low-budget sci-fi film, they expect that it's some kind of comedy because they have a lot of those sci-fi comedies back in the 80s that were criticizing the socialistic system. And they were laughing a lot on the film, on the right spots, on those small comic reliefs that we have in the movie. That Western crowd didn't, you know, like didn't, you know, because it's that atmosphere in the film is very strong. So you don't really realize that there is some funny moments that really exist in the script, and Russians were crazy about that. And they were a very, very tough crowd. After the film, they asked me about a lot of writers that, of course, I didn't read ever. But I was, you know, I was doing that thing that I learned in school. Like, I bought the book, but I didn't read. But it's on my shelf. It's the next thing, you know. This is the shot that my dear friend and actor Jean-Marc Barr took in Tarkovsky's village when Tarkovsky was born. This is, you have a Lenin on one side, and on the other side you have Orthodox Church, so I'm on the right spot, you know. This is, had a premiere, we had like Spanish premiere, but this was the most important festival. CGS is the most important genre festival because it's big stars come to that festival's agents, producers. Nick Cage had the premiere of Mandy, Tilda Swinton of Suspiria, I think. Also, bunch of guys, so it was a really beautiful experience. Our projection, and this is our projection in, we can put volume down, our projection in Trieste Science Plus Fiction Festival. It was really beautiful festival projection in that big opera house in Trieste. And they're like one of the oldest and really specialized festivals for sci-fi. So as always, that festival run is a little bit, you know, like make you tired, but at the same time, it's really beautiful to, you know, like see how other people are thinking and stuff. We also made a short comic, like some kind of prequel for the film that we were giving to the people, you know, like on the festival. So it was like one of those crowd-pleasing moments. And then we got American poster that is basically one of the most ugly posters, not because it's my film, you know, like I'm not like, I don't have that kind of moral problem because this is like a rip-off of Ex Machina, you know. I am not that guy, I don't give a fuck. But it's so ugly, you know, even if they rip off Ex Machina, they could do it a little bit better. But on, and this is, this was American poster, but on the other side, this is American trailer that was a little bit better. We got that, you know, like that pro-American voiceover guy. We can go with music up.
Our greatest threat.
You know, everybody wants to have film.
She will become our greatest threat.
Nimani, what is your assessment?
Wait, what's going on here?
How come Nimani's supervising me?
You became a liability.
The battle.
Danger. Danger. We don't have a problem.
Etc., etc. So it's totally misleading trailer that you think that is some kind of Terminator movie that people are fighting around, and then people probably bought the DVD or bought it on, you know, Apple store or wherever, and was like, what the fuck? So the first wave of comments on the film were quite negative in America, and then the other wave was quite positive. There came other people that say like, you don't get it, it's beautiful art film, etc. And we had like, this is our announcement in IMDb. So Lionsgate did quite a good job on the end. If you put poster aside, you know, like we were like, this is like 52nd place of all movies in that week on IMDb. Then we got up to 22nd place next week. So we were in top 100 movies in search and in interaction in IMDb for 1 month, which is quite a big success for a small indie movie. Usually they pop up only for 1 week and go down totally. This is Stoya, she were on Star Meter, 400 actors in the world for those few weeks. And this is like DVD in really enhanced. This is on the shelf, so it's really functioning on the shelf, and you see it's so ugly that really attracts your attention, because everything else looks decent on some level, and this is like on this red box kiosks. This is something that I really learned in this process. I didn't know that exists at all, because after Blockbuster went down, they had that red box billboard like kiosks, and they have like I think 10,000. And now they have like 40,000 of those, selling places. So I realized that basically I think, they buying upfront DVDs from the distributors. So I think that all of the money we get from Lionsgate was from this red box company, because they bought at least 40,000 DVDs that you can rent for $1.70. and buy for $6, so it's quite cheap. But probably it's already used if you take it for the red box. So interesting thing about this is that red box still functions, and that is bigger than ever. So that's why we in USA we first had like DVD and then digital distribution, and Blu-ray is still waiting. You can buy it absolutely everywhere in America. That's amazing thing about Lionsgate. This was, like some of those inspiring quotes campaign. And this is one little bit more decent poster that was made for Amazon Prime, because Amazon Prime took the film from France, and that was, for every European director, you have that, you want to have like French dubbing of the film, so you can hear a little bit.
On est toujours dans la fenêtre de communication.
Non, la prochaine fenêtre de communication est prévue dans 6 mois et 2 jours.
Comment se fait-il que Nimani me supervise?
Nimani est un androïde de nouvelle génération.
And this is our Korean, unfortunately South Korean poster. It's not North Korean. Still, I don't know why. This is our Japanese poster. We had a theater distribution in Japan, in Tokyo, like for few. I think that is still somewhere in cinemas there. And this is like Italian DVD. They did the proper DVD, Blu-ray, and Italian distribution it's one of the rare moments where the festival really have some kind of sense for selling the film, because after Trieste Festival we got offer from Italy that was quite okay, and we have that. You can hear how film sounds on Italian.
La giuce è un'ideologia per esperti.
Non vivrei volentieri in un sistema che adotta la giuce. Sono più un tipo da socialismo autogestito. Ma posso farlo.
Molti non la condividono.
Perché non si adattano volentieri alle ideologie orientali.
Italiani su malo ležerni sa.
Quelle che portano il marchio del dispotismo e del marxismo.
La missione non seguirà le procedure che lei è solito adottare. Non sarà solo durante il viaggio.
Because every guy in every French film, when they do dubbing, he sounds like that guy, Marcello Mastroianni. It's always the same voice.
Il gatto può essere vivo e morto nello stesso tempo. In una dimensione il gatto è vivo, in un'altra dimensione è morto. L'unico modo per sapere la verità è quello di aprire la scatola.
And on the end, this is the goal. We got to the test on philosophic faculty here of common knowledge. This is the goal, to get to the archive and to be into the test, So I think that on the end, my goal is to have in this room but I like more like old Kinoteka building in Kosovska Street to have like 3 films. So I need to make 2 more films, so I have like retrospective that those grannies come and buy tickets for 150 dinars and watch all 3 films. Then I got a little bit with the guy from Kinoteka to see if I can make some, because I made one serious film. So I like semi-serious, and then I asked, can I make some kind of phony film, like some kind of documentary about something, just to get those, because you cannot have retrospective with only 1 film. You need, 2 or 3. But so we got to the archive, and in this exactly in this room, this summer was like 70 years of Kinoteka, and we were like best domestic film from 2018. So on the end, I suppose, because we will all die eventually, that is the fact, So I suppose that, being this kind of test or in archive is really making all worth it, all this struggle. And that's about it. I think that I'm 4 minutes short, so I think that that's a good thing. People are tired, and it's like Saturday, and imajte milosti, tako da. Evo, sad će doći organizatori festivala da malo kažu ko je bio. There is some.
Is there any concept art that is done for the movie?
Is
there any concept art that is done for the movie?
Besides
the storyboards?
Yes, but that was about it. Paper storyboards, and because I was basically the VFX art director and director in the same time, and the running guy who is going with hard drives around the city. So, it was, no need for making something more realistic. That was on that level that you see. I think that most precise storyboard was, some of these very, I think that this was my biggest effort in that direction. It have a little bit of, shading and stuff. Any more?
Hi. So I absolutely loved the movie, the look of it. It was just stunning. So congrats on that. So my question is a bit of a generic one, but what would you say would be like the biggest lessons learned from the whole experience, and what would you do different next time around from pretty much any perspective?
Like next time probably it will be less effort, which is like always in life. So I don't know if that is a good thing. I don't know, but like it's always like the biggest challenge was to make something that all that ridiculous stuff in the film, and also like all that disbelief that people have about this topic, which is quite, like I understand people when you say like, porn actress, Serbia, sci-fi, it sounds ridiculous, but it also feeds me, like because when people watch you as a total moron, you're like, oh, you will see, so that was quite the driving force. But on the other side, like you have 2 options: to be genius or to really to work a lot, and because this first is probably not the case. That other one, need to be done. And it's always a problem, like, because when you make indie film, wherever, not only in Serbia, because always, when we are here in Serbia, we're always talking like here in Serbia, we don't have, real industry professionals, but it's not, it's like indie film. This budget is so ridiculously low that on the end, you will do everything yourself, and you need to. The most amazing experience was last 6 months when we were closing the edit and doing the last VFX stuff and packing the film, when I just automatize myself, how to say, not totally thinking about my ego, only like zeros and ones, like yes, no, bad, good. I was always thinking about the quality, but you know, like an artistic, but I was just totally not thinking about what it's going to bring to me, or is it have sense or stuff like that. I was just like, let's make it and get it out for somebody else to see it, you know. So I didn't, like every artist on the stage, I didn't say anything, but still it sounded like it has some kind of sense, you know.
Hi. One more. Okay. That was quite a performance. And second of all, if you could go back in time and tell something to your past self, what would it be? Like during the filming, of course.
I don't know, I think that any kind of, you know, like rethinking of past is bad, you know. You know, I think that got you crazy sooner or later. So I think that thinking got you crazy sooner or later, but rethinking of, you know, no, you know, I think that probably I will not say anything. I will, you know, you know, maybe some kind of joke. Yes. Maybe in some moments, yes, some things now I know, you know, like some very technical things or things about some people, you know, as you can imagine. But nothing too crucial, you know, like, because you know, I think on the end it was, you know, like quite a journey, and I learned a lot of things, and I will not learn that differently. So on me, like when I came on that set, that was quite serious. It was like maybe first time for me in a proper set. So that was, I'm not professionally director, so that was quite experience, quite a party, let's say.
Thank you.
Probably I will not trip around, you know, about some things that don't have any kind of sense, because on the end, this intuitive thing, when you start working on a movie, you always think like, I will, you know, predict everything and be totally precise, and then you come on the set and you see that there is a moment of time, other people, you know, capability and will to do something. So you always need to, basically you manipulate other people work. You're not working too much when you're director. So sometimes, especially when you're coming from that visual field, you want to predict everything, to draw everything, but that is a ridiculous thing to do. I think that you need to think artistically, but also very practically to get things done on the end, you know, with some kind of small first-time film budget that, you know, you can imagine. So is now time, huh?
Do we have one more question?
We have some invisible, no, somebody that I don't see. So now it's time for the guys from the festival to, you know, like say who was a good, who was a bad.